In September of 1989, many people encountered Hurricane Hugo. First, it swept through Puerto Rico and the Leeward Islands on September 17th and 18th, and finally hit South Carolina's coast on September 22nd. Hurricane Hugo had many short-term and long-term effects. In the short term, over 1.5 million people went without power, some for up to 18 days, and approximately 100,000 people were left homeless. Over $10 billion was spent on rebuilding and fixing homes. Some long-term effects were new laws that help hurricane victims and legislation to limit environmental impacts like erosion.
Before Hurricane Hugo, beach owners filled the beach with buildings such as resorts, restaurants, and vacation homes. The beaches were taken for granted, and few noticed that the beach was eroding. They tried to stop erosion by putting up seawalls, but that made the wave energy reflect, which made erosion even worse than before. People have lived in this area since the 1600s, and the United States had been hit by hurricanes before. On average, at least one hurricane hits the United States per year. However, hurricane insurance wasn't required. People didn't necessarily get help from insurance companies if a hurricane destroyed everything they had. After Hurricane Hugo, laws were made that helped these problems. On September 9th, 1989, Hurricane Hugo started off the west coast of Africa as a tropical depression. It continued increasing in intensity until it was a Category 4 hurricane with wind speeds up to 155 miles per hour. Hurricane Hugo hit the mountainous area of Puerto Rico, reducing its intensity to a Category 2. It also hit the Leeward Islands and continued toward the southeastern United States. The South Carolina city of Charleston was the most probable place to get hit, according to meteorologists. A hurricane watch went into effect with the biggest concerns being high tide, storm surge, and heavy rain. Hurricane Hugo was predicted to come ashore during high tide. There was a 6 to 8 foot storm surge predicted. It was highly recommended that people in low-lying areas, beach areas, barrier islands, and mobile homes evacuate as soon as possible. Those who had family in the other areas were encouraged to move as soon as possible. The hurricane had weakened but became a Category 4 hurricane again shortly before hitting Charleston. It also hit Charleston earlier than expected. The evacuations went well. There was an idea proposed that switched all highway lanes to the one direction to help evacuations move faster. But the evacuation was moving smoothly before the idea could be put into use. Quite a few evacuation routes were the major highways going in and out of the city.
It looks like a 10 to 15-foot storm surge. This is if the storm system makes landfall around Edisto Beach. Now, we're guessing on landfall, but it's a good probability someplace between Charleston and, say, just around Beaufort. So Edisto is a good place to look at. That's 10 to 15 feet above the normal low mean water. What does that mean? That means the water's coming from the ocean being pushed onshore.
Most of the city's people were gone, but those who stayed boarded their windows, filled up on gas and water, and stocked up their food supply.
The hurricane hit South Carolina on September 21st, 1989, late at night. The people who stayed and didn't evacuate were very scared.
Let me read you what I've just been handed, and then I'll continue with what I was about to say. Due to the forward speed increasing to 20 miles per hour, this is from AccuWeather, we are going for landfall at midnight tonight to 3 p.m.
When I was talking to Charlie, and I could see it in Charlie's face, Charlie got all of a sudden solemn and sad and depressed. And I remember off camera, I said, "You okay?" He said, "No, I'm not okay. This thing's coming. It's big. It's going to be devastation." And boy, was he right.
Its winds and heavy rain battered homes and barrier islands as they went as high as 150 miles per hour. Trees crashed and flew into homes, buildings, and cars. The eye of the hurricane is the center of the circulation. When the eye passed over the many places it hit, everything was completely calm.
It was very intense as the storm came over us. And then there was complete silence. It was really eerie when the eye was over us. So, of course, it was my Michelle and Eric that were with me. We were in the bathroom. We went outside to see if all the neighbors were okay. And it was just, dead silence, no wind blowing at all. And then the backside of the hurricane came slowly. You could start feeling the wind starting to pick up. So we, of course, ran back in and prepared for the second half.
But when the eye moved on, the storm hit South Carolina with renewed force. By the beach, 8-foot storm surge flooded many places. Homes, buildings, sheds, and barrier islands were hit once again, including historic downtown Charleston. George Metz, a paramedic in Charleston that was sheltered in a school, described the situation like this. The enormity of our situation was staggering. We were totally trapped. The tidal surge had risen so rapidly that we had no time to call for help. My walkie-talkie had gotten wet early and now had fallen into the inky darkness. We were on our own. The water was still rising, and those that could were packed like sardines on the stage.
Much of South Carolina was declared a disaster area by President Bush. Many houses were damaged or destroyed. Almost every neighborhood that was hit was in disarray. Trees and pine needles covered the ground.
Charleston, South Carolina. Once Hugo left the water, it quickly went from hurricane strength to a tropical storm over land, but even at that, it does remain a formidable presence. It moved farther west than forecasters expected before turning north, and the wind and rain are expected north into Canada through tomorrow morning. NBC's Kenley Jones tells us tonight, even as a tropical storm, Hugo was terrifying.
Some coastal residents drove 100 miles inland to this motel in Florence, South Carolina, seeking shelter from Hugo, but they didn't find it. One of several tornadoes spawned by the storm blew the roof off in the middle of the night.
About 107 people died during the hurricane. People helped each other out during cleanup. Many places had lots of water still on the ground. The aftermath of the storm created small tornadoes before it dissipated. The tornadoes that it created did not have strong enough wind power, resulting in no lasting harm.
Hurricane Hugo was known for being one of the most destructive hurricanes to encounter. It was the most destructive hurricane to hit the United States at the time, and now is ranked the 6th most destructive hurricane in the history of the U.S. Ideas about new laws were exchanged because of the impact on people's lives and the environment. From the Caribbean islands to the southern U.S., lots of people are suffering from the loss of everything they had. There is $8 to $10 billion in damage. Thousands of homes and businesses were damaged or destroyed. Citizens and community leaders knew that it would be a while before Charleston was back to normal. People felt Hugo's impact for many years to come. There was a lot less beach after Hurricane Hugo, so many people wanted to preserve it. No one ever wants to encounter a hurricane, but overall, most people reacted very well to this terrifying situation. In this bad situation, many people came together to help their neighbors and also total strangers. The citizens of Charleston and its surrounding communities encountered damage to roads, shops, and bridges. It was difficult to get supplies or get out of the city because of the extensive damage. By the coast and the places it hit, the trees were damaged or uprooted. Because there were so many trees on the ground, the risk of wildfires increased greatly. The state of South Carolina was in great need of a forest disaster response plan after Hurricane Hugo destroyed much of the state's forest. Hurricane Hugo destroyed things, but laws were enacted to help South Carolina's beachfront and also help hurricane victims. The Beachfront Management Act changed where people could build on the coastline. The new requirement was building 20 feet back from the first row of dunes because the dunes provide the most effective barrier to storm surge. The South Carolina General Assembly passed the Omnibus Coastal Property Insurance Reform Act in 2007, a law to help homeowners by increasing the availability of private insurance. Another law was created giving insurance policyholders more time to sue their insurers or file claims over damage from hurricanes. Since Hurricane Hugo, insurance companies have paid out nearly $400 billion in property damage claims to help people recover from hurricanes, tornadoes, and other catastrophes, said Dr. Robert Hartwig, Insurance Information Institute president. He also said, the combination of population growth in coastal areas and a period of more frequent and severe storms increases the likelihood of even more catastrophic damage in the future.
Hurricane Hugo was one of the most destructive hurricanes to ever hit the United States. The cleanup process took many months. People not only had to fix their homes, but also had to rebuild their lives, protect their beaches, and adjust to a new way of living after surviving such a frightening event. Hurricane Hugo's destruction led to the exchange of ideas to help save South Carolina's beaches and barrier islands through laws created to protect the natural environment, and also helped future hurricane victims by making laws to assist homeowners.